I really feel like my mom, used her power in the beyond to come back and make sure I was okay.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Love, Loss, and Hallucinations. Before we jump in, we will probably be talking about some plant medicine in this episode, so I am going to just read this little disclaimer quickly that this content is for educational and harm reduction purposes only. We do not promote or support illegal activity, the sale or use of restricted substances, or the use of associated tools or accessories. This is not medical advice, we are not doctors, and you should consult a qualified professional for your health decisions. So, with that out of the way, it is my pleasure to introduce everyone to Amy Scott Rooker. And Amy is an author and former attorney whose work explores trauma, awakening, and the return to wholeness after deep harm. After 2 decades as a corporate lawyer and tech executive, her life unraveled in ways she could not expect, forcing a reckoning with grief, identity, and unintegrated trauma. Her memoir, My Mother is a Dragonfly, just came out in May. And I will say that I have read probably 35 plus memoirs in the last couple years, and yours is definitely right up there as one of the better ones I've read, Amy. So first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I just want to say both, the writing, which for a lot of memoirs is the most difficult part, to have good writing with a compelling story and a lot of, I feel, very deep, meaningful insights into what it means to be human, what it means to have a good life, what it means to live in a good place, a good state, a good grounded present place, and the road it can take to get there is all within your memoir. And I just want to, you're kind of like the perfect guest for this podcast, Love, Loss, and Hallucinations, and all of that is in the memoir.
Yeah. Thank you. I received that. It was quite a journey writing it. And it was a homecoming. I mean, I was meant to be a writer, and it was what brought me joy when I was a kid. And I had left it behind, as I did with a lot of things that brought me joy. And so getting to come back to writing at this later stage of life and through this beautiful healing journey that I've been on is just a great honor of my life.
Yeah. And what, if you don't mind me asking, like, just for the readers out there who, aren't familiar with you, like, how old were you when you started to write this memoir and came back to writing?
Yeah. So, I'm 49 now, and my mom died almost 4 years ago. So my mom's death was a huge catalyst in my life.
Yes.
So when she passed away, it brought up, I had some trauma, some pretty serious trauma from when I was 14. I experienced sexual abuse within my family, and it just had never really been resolved. And so when my mom died, she was part of the trauma in the sense that I had gone to her and told her, and she did not do anything to protect me. She just acted as if I never told her. So I was left carrying it alone. So when she died, it sort of ripped this spiritual Band-Aid off my whole life. It just unraveled everything. And from there, I did some plant medicine, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But about 2 years into that awakening, I had a spiritual awakening that is still unfolding. I just knew I had to write down what was happening. It was so profound for me, and I knew it would be part of my healing journey to write it. And I also knew pretty quickly that I would publish it, as scary as that was, because this was exposing trauma that I had hidden my whole life, that I was very ashamed of.
And that involved other family members who are still alive.
Involves other family members who are still alive. And, is really, quite courageous and scary, and remains so, although I've gotten through a lot of that. But it's really shown me what freedom is, so many of us are trapped in these stories, families, secrets, what have you, and feel like we've got to keep that going in order to not hurt other people's feelings, in order to not blow up relationships. And I just saw that that is, my healing journey is so important. And whatever other people take from that is really not up to me. So, for example, with my dad, my dad was not part of my trauma. He's similar to my mom. He was there. I told him and he ignored it.
Right.
But he is very upset that this is out in the
Mhm.
public and he hasn't even read the book. He doesn't even really want to deal with it.
Yeah. He'd
Um,
rather ignore it and just try to pretend it's not real, it sounds like. Yeah.
yeah,
Which it sounds like what he did back when it actually happened.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I forget your original
Yeah.
question, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's
writing
great.
is this huge,
Mm.
cathartic,
Yeah.
um, incredible experience that really it was such a gift because it allowed me to see the puzzle pieces of my life and how they all fit
Hmm.
together. And I began to realize that what I believe now is that we are souls and we actually write our own stories, and that I had
Mm.
written this story, I believe, before I came here. And I saw how beautiful it was. I mean, hard, very difficult,
Yeah.
but ultimately so beautiful what I had
Yeah.
written for my life.
Well, and I was going to ask you actually, like, because I mean, it sounds from the reading of it, between memory and photos and journaling and that sort of thing, you'd processed a lot already, and so how did the writing help deepen that understanding or deepen that healing for you?
Yeah. In so many ways, I would say the most powerful way was reconnecting to my younger selves. So I
Mm,
realized, there's this concept in quantum physics that time is not real,
mm-hmm,
that actually
mm-hmm,
it's all happening at once and we're kind of at a different coordinate on the map. And that's really hard for the human brain to understand. And I don't fully grasp it, but I believe it. And as I was going through writing, I realized those former versions of me are still here. They're just as
mm-hmm,
present as they were back in 1980s or whatever. And I can actually go visit them and sit with them and heal with
mm-hmm.
them. I had this profound experience just recently where I was talking to my 14-year-old self and telling her I was with her and protecting her. And she turned around and said, "No, no, no, I'm with you right now. I'm helping you. I am here for you."
Yes.
And it was incredible because I was like, oh my gosh, wow. Like, so we really can heal through time. Time I do not believe is gone either in the past or
Mm-hmm,
in the future. We have the ability to really impact even the past by sending love back to ourselves, sending forgiveness back to others who have hurt us.
mm-hmm.
There's real healing that can happen through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And, it is quantum physics is so like similar, I think, have a very general like idea of it and how it makes sense that time isn't quote unquote real. And like you can be two places at the same time in a way to time. And, just my wife and I tell this story how when we met, she heard her voice in her head say, "You're going to marry that guy one day." And, she just thought it was like in her head and like, I never wanted to get married, but okay, sure. And of course, we ended up getting married and we've come through our own trials and plant medicine work and that sort of thing to realize that, that was basically her future self telling her,
Mm.
you need to marry this guy. You're going to like break him open and then he will be there for when you break open, and so we are there to help each other. So, I mean, whether it's true or not, I like to believe that it's true. And it's just a wonderful thought that, as you said, you can, forgive people in the past and that will only help you in the present. And it might even help your past person in the past too. So, I do want to loop around though, just even like the first line of your prologue, I just love, because it strikes me as, this book to me strikes me as, in a way, besides documenting your healing journey and all of that sort of thing, it's also like a love letter to your mom. And, yet the first line is, "I don't know if my mother loved me."
Yeah.
So, you guys had certainly a contentious relationship, both for, it seems like, she was kind of emotionally distant, and you can get into sort of how she evolved as you were growing up. And you already mentioned her reaction to the trauma, which, you read what her reaction was, and it's just like a gut punch. And that's just reading it, much less living it. So, you know, I guess, just go a little more, if you don't mind, like talk a little more about your relationship with her. I feel like there's a lot there as far as mother-daughter relationships as well. And I know that from having two sisters and witnessing their relationship with my mom. So I'm just hoping you could go a little deeper into that for
Yeah.
the listeners in your experience.
Yeah. My relationship with my mother is the thread through the whole
Yeah.
book. And it is a love letter to her. In the very beginning, so my mom, after she passed, started speaking to me. And I know that
Mm,
sounds incredible and kind of woo woo and might be a little wackadoodle to people. And it probably would have been to me too 5, 6 years ago. But she did. And I credit her with my healing journey because the
mm,
way she started coming through after she died made me really curious about what was going on because it didn't fit within my logical left brain, rational, intellectual worldview that I held. And so, just to back up, I know I started kind of in the middle. So, my mom was a little bit of an enigma to me most of my life. I came from a very well educated family. She had a number of degrees, but she didn't work ever really. And she was always very depressed. She would just kind of lay on the couch and be really
mm,
depressed. And then when my trauma happened, I was sexually assaulted by a family member, one of my brothers. When I was 14, I went to my mom and she said something pretty horrific, and
mhm,
then just acted like it had never happened. We never spoke of it again for probably 15 years. And so after that, I just knew I was on my own to navigate my life. And I became angry. I became rebellious. I still continued to be this high functioning, good kid in a way. I describe it as a split self. I kind of became two different people at the same time. Um, and then over time, my mom and I really hated her. We had that teenage mother daughter relationship, and we
yeah.
didn't get along. But then over time, she started kind of changing and became a different person. She became happier, and I kind of just accepted her for who she was later in life. So we stitched together this new relationship that looked kind of normal from the outside. We were allowed to seem close, but we really never talked about the trauma. I mean, she would mention it, she acknowledged it happened. It wasn't as if she denied my version of the truth, but there was just rules around how we were allowed to talk about it.
Mhm,
And
mm,
so then she died. And that really, as I mentioned earlier, just kind of pulled the band aid off a lot of things. And it felt like my world just was collapsing. It felt like I had all of the things I hadn't really processed just kind of were caving in on me. And that is around the time my mom started talking to me and sending me
mm,
dragonflies. And so, and I'm getting chills as I say that because it was
mm.
just so profound and so beautiful and so unexpected. I'd heard that signs were possible, but I would think that would be like a close mother daughter relationship where that would happen. And we didn't have that. And so it really got me curious about what was going on, how this was possible. And again, that's where I started looking at plant medicine and considering alternative ways to heal. But my mom really, for all the faults she had in life and all the ways she wasn't there, I could just feel her when she had passed coming back and like really just lending the support to me to show me that she was still here and that she
Mm.
was going to help me uh, navigate what came next. And I had no idea what that was at the time. But it just became this beautiful thing to me. I mean, I really feel like my mom, um, used her power in the beyond to come back and make sure I was okay.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
yeah, it was just incredibly beautiful and still hard for me to even believe the story is true. It happened to me. I mean,
Except it all happened,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah. When your mom passed, do you feel and it really it sounds like it really broke you open. Um, do you feel like that was in part or large part because of all this unresolved issues you had never really like processed with her?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it made me see the other thing that it made me. So, a therapist I was speaking to at the time introduced me to the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. And I listened to a podcast, a really pivotal podcast that I just re-listened to the other day, of his, where he's an interesting guy because he has his own trauma and his own issues, and so
Mm-hmm.
at least I felt really like seen by him, because he's been there and been through depression and been through issues himself. But he talks about how unprocessed, unresolved trauma turns into one, addiction, and two, illness in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I very quickly saw how my mom, because she was pretty riddled with diseases by the time she died, how I didn't fully understand it yet, but I had a clue at least that there was something very traumatic that had happened to her, including what had happened in our own family,
Mm.
that she had suppressed and not talked about. So I put together these pieces and I didn't fully understand it, but I knew if I didn't do something, I would end up like my mother. And that
Mm.
was terrifying to me that
So
she
some
was,
generational trauma
yeah,
and then also not wanting to continue down that road.
yeah. And again, I wouldn't have articulated it exactly that way at the time because a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
snapped into place later. But I saw there was something really, yeah, ancestral being passed down. And that if
Yeah.
I didn't do something, and this was the time to do it, because if my mom's death wasn't going to catalyze it, I wasn't ever going to do it.
Mm.
So it just became very clear to me I could not go on in the old way and something needed to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I think everyone has those moments in life, it seems. And then it's how you react to it, whether you lean in as you did or continue to suppress it down.
Yeah.
And, big fan of Gomor Mate over here as well. The Truth and Normal, amazing book. Highly recommend that. So just want to plug that and had the good fortune of seeing him live like a couple months ago. And that was just
Wow.
incredible. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really great.
I have an intention to meet him someday and hand him my book. That is a
I
dream that
think
I
so.
have. Yeah.
That would be just what a beautiful moment. I have no doubt that will happen. So how long ago, remind me how long ago it was that your mother passed?
It'll be 4 years in August.
4 years. So 4 years. And then you started to write the book about 2 years ago. So it was like a 2 year hardcore leaning in healing journey that you started at that point.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, was talking to a therapist. It was somebody I had worked with in San Francisco years before, and I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't really worked with her for a while. But she and I had a few really amazing sessions where she helped me put some of these pieces together. She's the one that mentioned Gabor Mate.
Mm.
And then driving out to Santa Fe, I was on a long car ride binge listening to a bunch of podcasts of his. And he talks about psychedelics. That's not the only modality he recommends, and he doesn't recommend it for everybody. But it was like a lightning bolt through my body. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I am doing psychedelics. And I had no idea what that meant. I didn't even know what kind. It felt extremely radical to me to even consider that. But by the time I got out of the car in Santa Fe, I was like, this is what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
so that same therapist knew of a shaman who offered uh, psilocybin. I ended up doing psilocybin mixed with MDMA. She calls it a
Hmm.
flower flip.
Uh-huh.
And so
Interesting.
she put me in contact with that shaman. And about 6 months later, I flew out to do my first medicine journey with her. And that was an extremely profound experience for
Mm.
me. We can talk more about the details, but
Yeah, for sure.
um,
I
I,
do want to. We're definitely going to get to the psychedelic journey here. I know you've had more than one as well at this
yeah,
point, but I do just one thing about the therapist. I think your name was Sybil. Is that
yeah,
correct? Yeah, or at least that's what the name you use in the book.
yeah.
So, she just because this is a podcast also about loss. There was one piece of advice she gave you that I just want to share with the readers that I think can be meaningful for people who have, kind of contentious relationships with someone who's passed, whether it's mother or father or whatever. And it was something around, people were giving you their condolences, but you're like, I still have this weird contentious thing with my mom, and you hadn't done the healing yet. You hadn't started talking to your mom yet, after she had passed. And so, yeah, Sybil said something about that I thought was valuable. I don't know if
Yeah, I
you
remember.
recall that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know anybody else that had a complicated relationship with their parent
Hmm.
the way that I did. And so I felt very much on an island. I felt so alone in this because people would say, I'm so sorry your mom died. And, they would say nice things. And I'd be like, well, that's not really, I mean, she wasn't that great of a person. And
Mm,
it was really difficult for me to feel so unseen in that, to feel like I was just agreeing that she was this great person who passed
yeah.
away and that was the end of it. For me, it's often very important to be very honest. And I think that's part of because of the trauma and the silence that I lived with as a younger, as a kid. But so I talked to Sybil and I was like, this feels so fake. I don't feel comfortable just saying, yeah, she was a great person. And she said, you just say it's complicated. My relationship
Mm,
with my mother was complicated. And so her death is too. And as simple as that sounds, it was revolutionary to me because it was so honest and so accurate, and it just really
mm,
it relieved this kind of burden I felt like I was carrying around. And I do think it's important that we talk about death more honestly. I
yeah.
mean, a lot of times people, just act like everybody that died was a saint and, we're just sad they're gone and that's the end of it. And like, that's probably not very often exactly the truth, right? I mean, people are complicated and there's
Hmm.
good and bad to everybody. And I don't know how that became the way we are supposed to experience grief, but it's not very honest. And I think it's probably really hard on a lot of people to have to just navigate it because what that creates is pockets of people who are alone in their experience, right? They think
Exactly.
they're the only
Yep.
one. They think, they've got to pretend or else people will think they're mean or weird or what have you. And one of my big things is vulnerability. Like, how do we bring more vulnerability to the world to allow people to know they are not alone? Because you're,
Hmm.
I can guarantee pretty much anything you experience, somebody else has also gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. The courage of vulnerability,
Yeah.
courage to have vulnerability, I guess is a better way to say it.
Yeah. And also,
Um,
like, can we create a world where it's not courageous, right? That where it just becomes the
where
norm,
it's
where it
normal.
becomes
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
like not the norm to pretend and it becomes the norm to just say what is going on for all of us.
Hmm.
I think that is how we really start connecting with each other.
Yeah. Was there anything else? I'm curious if you had any experiences when your mom died of anyone who did something besides give their condolences that you found to be helpful in your grief.
Hmm. I can't think of anything off the top of my
Mm.
head. That was a pretty complicated time. There was a lot going on. We also entered into a legal battle, and there was
Right.
there was a
Yeah.
lot of moving pieces at that time. I
Do you
had
feel
never,
like you had this space to grieve because of
no,
all this stuff
no,
going on? Yeah.
no. I really didn't have the proper opportunity to just have space until
Mm.
after we got into this lawsuit with a man that my mother had been dating when she passed away, and um, ended up, I think it was, yeah, we settled into, so it was like a little over a year and 4 months maybe of this lawsuit. And so until that was over, and then we also had, I don't want to get too into the muck of all
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
but
We don't
there
want
was
to give too
also
much
a
away,
house
but
that we had to
yeah.
figure out. So there was a
Yeah.
lot going on that didn't really allow me to grieve my mom. But I will say during that
Mm.
period, she was so present. I mean, she was just with
Mm.
me so often that I really, it didn't feel like she was really gone
Yeah.
until,
And that was before the psychedelic journey, right? Or
Yes.
is it?
So she started showing up
Yeah.
before the psychedelic journey, but I really understood that she was really with me once the
Mm.
psychedelic journey happened and after.
So you get to Santa Fe, you're sure you're going to do this psychedelic journey after listening to the podcast and that sort of thing. And then you fly out to the shaman.
Mhm.
And this was a one-on-one situation or?
One of my friends came with me, so there was two
Oh,
of
okay.
us and a shaman. Yeah.
Okay. And then again, you said like this was not something you had ever considered. And what was it that you thought like, oh, this is what I need to do?
I have no idea. It was just a full body, like,
Mm,
knowing,
yeah.
and this
Yeah.
was before I understood that what that knowing sense really is,
Hmm.
but it was just
Your
like,
future self.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
truly,
Yeah.
or my higher self,
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
telling me that this is what I needed to do. It was just a real full body knowing, and I had
Mm,
still very little idea what it would actually be. I did a little bit of research, but I was just full in. And for me, that's pretty unusual. Usually I know everything and research everything and do all my homework. And I just blind faith, faith trust, that this was what I was supposed to be doing.
yeah. Yeah. To take the plunge. I feel like, I don't know if that's, I'm also a middle child. You are a middle child. So I don't know if that's like the whole, as you mentioned in your book, you know, you were perfectionist, like to control things, and then you just sort of take this leap, like similar situation for me. So I don't know if that's a middle child thing, but
Mm, maybe.
yeah, maybe. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but just an observation. So in this journey, the first one, what do you feel, without giving away too much, because you know we don't want to give away the whole book, but what was one of the big kind of revelations or healings that might have come through during that for you?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot. It was a very, very profound journey. There was a number of
Mm,
profound things that happened. I'll just mention two. So my mom did come through. And when I say she came through, what I mean is she was there. She was radiant. She looked the most beautiful I've ever seen her.
mm,
And it it was her. I mean, she was there. And I got to talk to her and ask her a few questions. And she immediately apologized for
mm,
not protecting me. And it was a sense of we were back when I was 14, and she said, you know, we will send your brother away and you are protected and I will always protect you from now on. So
mm,
that was incredibly cathartic and healing. And the other thing that happened was that I relived my trauma. I actually went through what had happened
wow.
again, but I wasn't alone. There was actually a presence with me, and the presence told me it's all okay and nothing needs to be any different, and you did not do anything wrong. And as simple as that sounds, I needed to hear that. Like, I really,
Mhm,
I think when trauma happens, in some ways, you're still stuck at that age as it relates to the trauma. And so my 14-year-old self still needed to know that. And that was the birth of self compassion. I was
mm,
always just so hard on myself and so just, God, why can't you be better? Why can't you be different? Why did you do things the way you did things? And that was a moment where just this beautiful love energy for myself started to bloom. I didn't fully get all the way there on that journey, but it was birthed and I began to see that there was a possibility that I could actually love myself. And that
mm.
was very profound for me.
Wow. Well, and I think, you know, for people out there who haven't perhaps done mushrooms or a plant medicine, you know, saying all these things can seem like, oh yeah, that's nice and that sort of thing. And that, yeah, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's like in the journey, um, in plant medicine journeys, like it hits on such a deeper, truer, whole body, whole soul level.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard to put that into words, I think, but just knowing that you've experienced that is, I mean, just such an incredible gift and shift in perception. And that's the thing, like, I guess maybe it's that without, like, if you go to therapy and you're saying sort of the similar things, you can say it, but there's always seems to be like this little grain that's kind of stuck there, and it's really, 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 it seems really hard to like shift that. But with plant medicine, you're able to like fully like flood that out of your system in a
Yeah,
way. Does that
totally.
sound accurate?
Yes. I
Yeah.
think there's sort of the intellectual knowing of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't my fault. I know that. But then with plant medicine, it's it takes you it transports your body somewhere else. Like you are in a feeling of being back, or I'll just speak for myself. I was in a feeling of being back there and nothing changing except that there was this presence who was telling me something that it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't my fault. It didn't need to be any different. And it didn't just enter as intellectual, like, okay, thanks for telling me that. It was like it landed in my body and became part of me. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what's so
Yeah.
amazing about plant medicine is it's not just telling you something. It's not like reading a book. It's not like just hearing something. It's taking your whole body and every atom of you and making you understand something and actually be in it and feel it. And it's not like it's against your will or anything. You have choice in all of this. So it's not like scary. You don't feel out of control. Um, but I mean, plant medicine is just, I mean, everybody has to come to it on their own, but I do
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
everybody in the world would benefit from doing mushrooms.
That's well
Um,
said.
And I think that's why they're here. I believe that they're here,
Mm-hmm.
that they're a gift from God, that they are here to help us remember who we really are and awaken. And they are truly gifts. And yeah, I think I never try and push anybody into it or convince anybody
Yeah.
of it. However, I will tell anybody and everybody how amazing they have been in my life and how transformational. And just, yeah, you can't get what you get from plant medicine from therapy.
Yeah, from really any other way that modality that I've maybe a little bit holotropic breathing, but
Yeah.
it's still not even quite the same level, at least not my experience. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about like, I would never recommend anyone to do plant medicine, but if they're feeling called to it, I would definitely suggest it. I suggest they follow that call.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'd like to loop a little bit over to your spiritual awakening, as you mentioned. And, I found it interesting in that, once the trauma of when you were 14 happened, you had gone to church with your family forever. You had some serious Methodist roots. Your great, great, great grandfather founded Southern Methodist SMU,
Hmm.
Southern Methodist University. But after the 14-year-old experience, kind of left organized religion to say, and then this whole experience, as you said, has caused you to have this spiritual awakening. Now, to you, what does that mean that you had a spiritual awakening?
Hmm. It's a big question.
Yeah.
I would describe a spiritual awakening as a sense of suddenly realizing that you have been asleep. So not knowing
Mm,
that you had been asleep, but suddenly having uh, some, windows or curtains open that are over your eyes and seeing that there's this other aspect to life that you had not been able to see before. A spiritual awakening is not a one-time thing. It's not an instantaneous thing. It's a journey. You have a moment of awakening, and then you have to follow that thread and walk through it. And there's no two paths that are the same. Nobody
mhm.
walks the exact same way, and it's different things resonate for different people. So that's why a spiritual awakening, it's not something you can teach and it's not something you can force. It's something that
Yeah.
happens to you. You can certainly do things to encourage it, such as plant medicine. Um, for me, what it looked like was after that first plant medicine journey, I just felt like the top of my head had been blown open, and I didn't really know the term conscious. I mean, I heard consciousness, but I didn't really know what that meant. But it was really my consciousness had been kind of blown open. And
Hmm.
I realized the world was not what I thought it was, that there was something else going on here. Specifically, my mom coming through and reliving my trauma, just being in that feeling of what had happened during my plant medicine journey made me realize this rational, logical, you know, progression of life that I've been living is not all there is. There's a lot more
Mm.
going on. And so for me, I then continued to be my left brain rational self and do all this research to try and figure out what I had seen. Um, that was my journey and that worked for me and I got to where I needed to get, but that's not necessarily what other people need to do. But I really wanted to understand how it was possible that I saw what I saw. I was immediately sure I was not the only one who could have seen this. And so I wanted to find other people who had similar experiences.
Mm.
Um, Ultimately, I think a spiritual awakening is about realizing that we are not who we are traditionally taught that we are. In other words,
Mm.
I am not Amy who uh, lives in Austin, Texas and wrote a book. That is the current manifestation that I'm living in this body, but underneath that I'm actually an eternal soul and there's so much
Mm.
more
Mhm.
as far as why we're here, what we're doing, um, and the nature of each of us and who we are is so much greater than what we've been taught to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's so well said that our nature is so much more than what we've been taught to understand. And, that just kind of brings to mind, I was just reading this book, Michael Pollan's new book, which is
Mm,
on consciousness,
yeah.
which can get a little pretty heady sometimes, but, he traces sort of like this split back to even Galileo in the 17th century, where he kind of split things into primary measurements, things you could actually hold and measure and quantify, and then secondary, which was like your how much your dog loves you, let's say, and things that you couldn't really quantify that he sort of didn't want to touch, sort of more the ethereal things of life, which feels, on some level we're talking about here. That the main reason I think he didn't want to touch it was because he didn't want to like piss off the church, right?
Mhm.
So since the 17th century, we've had this split where everyone is like, I must touch it, I must be able to measure it, or it is not real. And yet, now quantum physics, as you've alluded to, is bringing it back to like, oh, well, maybe not so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Materialist science is what we've all been taught is reality. And there's a lot of things it can't explain. And but we've also been taught to laugh at those things, right? So
Mm,
like anything that's woo woo, I think I have a
exactly.
line in the book that's something like maybe woo woo is the word for everything science can't explain. So we observe these things, right? We observe near death experiences. We observe children who can speak foreign languages that they've never learned when they're born and they remember past lives. We observe all sorts of things that are woo woo. And science just says, oh, that's not real. That's the explanation. But when you start to put it all together, it's pretty hard to say all of this is not real and that people that have a near death experience while they have stage 4 cancer and come back healed, like that just is somehow we don't need an explanation for that. To me it gets pretty fuzzy. And then with quantum physics, I mean, more and more it is pointing to everything is energy.
Hmm.
Everything is connected. I mean, I think that's been proven at this point that in fact nothing is really separate. Everything is all one and connected. um, why we don't talk I mean, it's like these things will happen in quantum physics and people are just like, okay, cool, and we move on. But why don't
Yeah.
we talk about this on the news? I mean, this stuff is really revolutionary and speaks so much to um, like the spirituality and the quantum physics fit together in this beautiful way that I don't know why we
Hmm.
don't talk about more because it's really speaking to why we're here, what we're all searching for, happiness, purpose, all of that. Um, it's like right under our nose, but we act like it's some woo woo thing that,
Yeah.
only fringe people talk about. And I,
Yeah.
that to me is it's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is vulnerability. And people don't want to talk about it because it might seem weird. And then people might think that person, whoever's saying it, is weird. And so, yeah, it stays under the rug, right?
Yeah.
Um, what, at this point, and I'm assuming it's a continuing journey, the spiritual awakening, like has it given you now? Like, how has it helped your life now?
My life is completely different than it used to be. I mean, not, I don't think there's a single thing that's the same. I used to work in corporate America. I've now left my job to pursue this career as an author and spiritual person. I'm not even exactly sure what I'm doing. I'm just surrendering into what comes.
Mm,
Um, I am very careful about the content I take in. So I'm look at, television, music, all of that, and make sure I'm only consuming things that I feel like are value add to me. Wake up and meditate. I um, just am very purposeful in everything that I do. I used to drink a lot. That was kind of my
mm,
coping mechanism. I spontaneously quit drinking, I think 2.5 years ago, and just never even, I don't even think about alcohol anymore. To me, that's something that kept me very faded out and not present. And now all I want
right.
to do is be present and be here. Um, all I want to talk about is what we're talking about right now. So I've kind of curated my friend
Uh,
group, and I'm much more careful about who I surround myself with, what I do. I mean, you name it, it's different than it used to be. And as a result of all of that, I'm joyful. I used to have
mm,
pretty intense depression. I used to feel like I was fighting against life and everything was a struggle. And, I had to be kind of a jerk to people to kind of get through the day. And now I come from a place of love and joy, um, and
mm.
vulnerability. And um, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm happy. It's amazing.
It is a beautiful thing. And like if you're not watching this on YouTube right now, you can just kind of see this glow that you have at the moment as you're describing how happy you are. Do you find that, I mean, is it challenging though for, certainly you can like help filter things out, but the world can seem pretty overwhelming and, there's a lot of negative shit
Yeah,
happening at the moment. Like, and so how, it's balancing like having this joy without, to me, it's this question of balancing having this joy and happiness without ignoring what's bad in the world and, you know, trying what little things that we can do as us lesser, not in positions of power people to, help the others around you. I mean, and that's my experience. And I don't know if you have a
yeah.
similar situation with that.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I do think though that this idea that we all need to be super informed and we need to know everything that's going on in the world and kind of take it on our shoulders. I'm
Mm,
not sure that that's correct. And I'm not trying to argue this in some intense way because I don't, if that works for you and that's, you want to be super informed, that's great. But I think this like constant watching the news, hearing about war, all of these things, it's like this barrage of
mm,
desensitizing um, assault on our nervous system. Like, I don't really know that that's what is helping anything. um,
yeah.
um,
Maybe not the healthiest boundary setting,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But also, we need people who care. We need people who are informed. We need people who are advocating for, um, those who cannot advocate for themselves. So I'm not trying to say we should all just have, blinders on and live in a bubble of joy and ignore everything else
Hmm.
either. I don't have a solution. but I do worry about people who are just inundated with this, the news and all the doom and
Yeah.
gloom, and don't feel like they have any way to actually help the situation. I don't think that's mentally healthy for us as humans. Um, so I
Mm.
don't have the solution to how we get out of
Yeah.
this, like, human, disaster that we're living inside. But I will also say that the power of love is incredible, and the
Mm.
ripple effects from love and
Yeah.
just the
Yep.
simplest things. I mean, just, you know, stopping next to the homeless person and saying hello. You don't even necessarily have to give them money, but treating them like a human
Yeah.
being. You know, just doing little things to show that we have humanity is really, really powerful, way more powerful than the darkness, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I love that. And I totally like it. To me, it brings to mind that, like, we each have our paths and our own ways that we can help. And with you, or help societies in a bigger way. And with you, it's like writing this book, and you're writing and showing, helping people feel they're not as alone because they can resonate with what you've written in your book, and that'll help them on their path. Or it could be like, oh, this is the environmental person and they're going to help with the environment. And it's not ignoring it, it's just knowing you can't solve everything, right?
yes,
And if you try to do that, you're just going to get buried and not
yeah.
function. And that doesn't help anybody.
It's reminding me there's this word I came across not too long ago called anava, which is a
Mm,
Hebrew word that means most directly humility. But it
mm,
really is a broader definition of the space that God carved out for you. So really it's speaking towards each of us has our place and our role in the world that we live in right now. Not all of us are meant to do the exact same things, but each of us is helping in the way that we have been assigned to by God. It's a really beautiful concept in a lot of different ways,
mm,
because
mm-hmm.
it also takes away any sort of like FOMO, or I wish I had what that person has, because you're like, no, this is
Right.
this is the life that I am supposed to be living this time around, and there's something in this that I'm learning and something in this I'm doing to help. And I trust that. And I don't need to be any bigger or any smaller than I am. I
Mm,
just claim what I've been given. And some of us have some of us are on stages and have tons of money, and that's
exactly.
the life we're given. Some of us live in a small cabin and, tend to the land. And that's the life we've been given. And there's neither is better and neither is above or below. But if we can really
Mm,
understand what God has given us and assigned to us and fully embrace that, um, it can allow us to release a lot of that control, a lot of that, wishing that things were different, as well as help us to see where we are being called to spread love and
mm,
help others.
yeah. Oh, I love that. The humility and spreading love. I mean, there you go. um, got a couple last quick questions, but before we get to that one, those just want to ask if, for someone out there who, is at that point where you were at, say, when your mother died and kind of broke you open, and you're like, it feels dark, it feels hard, it's challenging, it's, you know, you can't figure out the road ahead. What, if any, do you have any advice for someone like that, as how to lean in
Mm.
to what their experience is versus like turning around and kind of running the other direction?
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about hidden gifts and how in the
Mm,
darkness, in the hard things, there are gifts, always, always, without exception.
yes, agreed.
And if we can have that mental state, even if we can't see it yet, if we can just see that this is a hard thing that's been put in my path for a reason. And I trust that. And I don't know why
Mm,
yet. And I don't know what I'm supposed to be learning yet, but I'm trusting that it is there for a reason. That is so powerful, because then you allow it to kind of open and unfold, and you can follow it the way that you're supposed to.
mm,
I truly believe that everything is in our path for a reason and that we even have chosen it. And I know
Mm,
that can sound kind of radical to people, um, but when you believe that, when you believe that everything in your path was chosen by you, think how much power that gives you to be like, wait a minute, this thing that I'm fighting against and wish didn't exist and wish wasn't here is actually something that I chose. And then it just really starts to transmute the thing into something that you can start to see from a different angle. And it just gives you so much more power than feeling like life is just happening to you and you're dodging and weaving. It's this
yeah.
acceptance of like, this is here for me and I will get to the other side of it. And there is something in it for me. And I trust that.
Yeah. Trust. Trusting the universe, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yourself,
And
your higher
yourself.
self, that you're safe. We're ultimately, I mean, the underneath the belief that we are eternal souls is that we can't really be hurt in this lifetime because we are
Mm,
eternal souls. And so no matter what, we're getting out of this and returning to that eternal soul that we've always been. And so you're always profoundly safe no matter what is happening.
mm, mm. Wow. That's a big concept to take in, especially if you're being currently hurt. But yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
It is.
yeah.
And I don't want to yes. Some of these spiritual concepts can feel very paradoxical and difficult.
Right.
And that is one of them because there is real harm that happens. And we do live in this world right now. And I don't want to take away from that at all. If you were in active, unsafe situation, certainly like that is something you need to remove yourself from, get help. So I don't want to
Exactly. Yeah.
suggest that you're meant to stay in an unsafe situation.
Yeah. But yeah, and then once you've hopefully removed yourself down the line, have healed, and it gives you this amazing gift like this book. My Mother is a Dragonfly.
Yeah.
So before I get to the last three kind of speed questions, where can people find you, find the book, all those good things?
Yeah, the book, My Mother is a Dragonfly, is available anywhere online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And my website is amyrooker.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Amy Scott Rooker.
Okay, great. Awesome. Fun. I always like to give Bookshop a plug to support those indie
Bookshop,
art.
yes.
Yeah,
Anywhere
indie
online you can
bookstores.
buy books.
Yeah.
You should find me
Yeah, I
there.
think I got mine from Bookshop. So,
Cool. Love that.
um, yeah, yeah. So, last three kind of quick questions. First one, people are always like, "That's not a quick question," but we'll see. So the first one is, what is uh, a quote unquote hallucination or an altered state or a plant medicine journey or something along those lines that you have experienced in the last year, let's say, um, that has taught you something new?
Hmm. I always learn something new. I did a plant medicine journey, the same kind, mushroom and MDMA combo that was really centered around forgiveness. And it was
Mm,
really interesting because it showed me something I had done that I didn't wasn't even really like top of mind or anything, but it came in with this really visceral feeling of like I am so wrong in doing this thing. It was almost overwhelming. Like I almost felt like I needed to like scream. And then
oh,
it
wow.
turned all of a sudden and became forgiveness. And it was just this beautiful golden light of forgiveness that came through. And
For
what I understood,
yourself?
yeah, the light came through in
Mm,
like my mind's eye through my body.
okay.
And what I immediately understood was we are all forgiven. We are all just
Mm,
forgiven. This is another one that can be hard because there's things that people do that are wrong. And, we do live in this real world. However, we are ultimately all forgiven and all innocent. And the way it showed me again in this like very visceral body sense was just so beautiful. I walked around the rest of the day being like, we're all forgiven. We're all forgiven. Like I couldn't stop saying it because it was just so profound. So yeah,
right.
that was
Well, and you have found forgiveness for those in your family who hurt you back in the day.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Forgiveness to me is so foundational to the
Mm,
spiritual work. I think we've got to forgive ourselves first and foremost, and we've got to forgive everyone else. And it can be hard. It took me a long time to mentally walk myself through the steps I needed to get there.
mm,
But you're ultimately freeing yourself.
right.
Holding grievances, holding people accountable for things. You're really holding yourself back in time whenever that thing happened and you're reliving it in your head. You're allowing that person to continue to harm you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
Harm
that's
and
only,
control you and
yeah.
give you negativity. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Years
that's only
later.
one of the
Yeah.
reasons it's important, but, for that reason alone, we should all want to find forgiveness.
Work on forgiving and find forgiveness for ourselves. Yeah, for sure. What is something, second question, what is something in the last year or two that you've lost or had to lose that, and that could be good or bad, that also taught you something?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind, I my book was available for pre-order for like a couple months, and I lost all my Amazon orders. They like accidentally removed the SKU and it canceled all these pre-orders that I had.
No. Oh
Yeah, it felt
God.
pretty like Shakespearean. I was like, "What is happening right now?" It was like this, and
Wow.
something else happened that week too that was, um so really it was teaching me the how much control I still try to have over things, and we none of
Mm-hmm.
us have control. I mean, we really don't. And just think how free you would feel, or free I would feel if I just completely said, "Okay, that happened, and then that happened, and then that," and just really rolled with it. So I'm still
Yeah.
learning that one. It's pretty hard for me.
Whew. Were you able to recover some of those orders in any way?
It's kind of hard to
Not
know. I never
sure.
really got
Yeah.
metrics on the lost
Ah,
orders, and then I had to
brutal.
post one of those messages to Instagram being like,
Yeah.
"Hey guys, guess what?" It was just
Oh
awful.
my gosh. That's along the lines of like you work 2 weeks on a term paper or something and then
Yeah,
accidentally erase it from your computer. Like,
yeah.
oh,
I literally
devastating.
saw like hours of work just melting, and I was like, it
Oh
was it was
gosh.
pretty. But I immediately was like, "Wow, there is something in this for me. Like I am
That's a
learning
lesson.
something
Yeah.
really crazy right now." So,
Yeah. That is a big lesson. um, Last but not least, what are you loving right now and why?
what am I loving and why? Oh my gosh. It's gonna make me cry. I'm gonna say
Mm,
me. I'm loving me. I'm
mm,
loving that
best
I
answer ever.
get to live this life. I mean, it's really the first time, and I've been given so many gifts, and I have been privileged in my life. So I don't want to discount that, but this is the first time in my life I like feel like my life is chosen by me. That I am actually
Mm,
the one deciding what I'm doing, and I stand by what I really co-sign my life right now. Like
mm.
I just
I
feel
love
like
it.
I like what I'm doing, and it's not perfect, and I don't, I'm not always happy and joyful, but I like who I am. Yeah,
Mm, mm. Wow, what a gift. A gift to
it is.
yourself and to everyone around you, no doubt.
Thank you.
Um, well, thank you for this hour. Really enjoyed meeting with you, talking with you. Um, all the things we talked about were so like in line with what I want to do with this podcast. So thank
Cool.
you so much. And yeah, hopefully one of these days we'll cross paths in real life.
I love that.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you.
You
This was
bet.
amazing.
Likewise. Thanks, Amy.